All right, what's up? Tim Sykes here. Nightly video lesson. I want to go over my play on VCIG. This is just the latest Friday play that just really keeps spiking. I've been on fire, not just because, the strategy is so good. The strategy is so good in this hot market. This is why I do these video lessons. Literally, I'm filming this in the middle of the night to help prepare you. Hopefully I can reach some of you by next Friday so that you don't miss another opportunity. A lot of people take time off during the summer. They wind down on Fridays. I'm actually ramping up during this crazy summer because the markets are hitting new highs, and I'm always ramping up on Friday afternoons. Friday afternoons are a time where you can always find inefficiencies, okay? And that means where too many people are not taking Friday afternoon seriously because of human nature, because of the weekend, and the plays really pop up. And if you are prepared, there's an abnormal amount of upside, an excessive amount of upside. And that's why I focus on Friday afternoons. Not because I want to, I'm not like mean. I'm not like, hey, I want to ruin, your wind down period. I want to ruin your weekend. On the contrary, I want this time period to really be a priority for you too. So if at any point in this video you understand that, leave a comment, say, I will respect Friday afternoons or Friday evenings, depending on your time zone. I'll link this. I have a whole free presentation on why these Friday afternoon plays are so hot. It's usually around 3 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, heading into the close on Fridays. This has been working now for 20 plus years, but specifically the past, 5-6 weeks. And I've done, different varying amounts of capitalizing on it versus not capitalizing on it. And, I'm not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect, but the opportunity is there. When the markets are hitting new highs, there's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of momentum. It doesn't take much to really set off one of these stocks that can spike 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 200% in a few hours or in a few days. You might know that I make the analogy that, stock trading can be like skee-ball, right? Like if you know skee-ball. Skee-ball is an arcade game where, you go up the center for like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. This is a weird one. Usually there's hundreds over here too. So you have a few different, numbers that you can hit, and it's easier if you roll the ball up the center, depending on how much, weight you give it, depending on your strength. It's pretty easy. You're going up one line, and you can basically choose whether you want to try to get 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50. 50 is obviously risky because you're not in the circle. I like to go for the 30s or 40s every single time. That's me. Most times with skee-ball and most times with stock trading, I like to take very specific wins. But in this crazy market, on Fridays, I would venture to say that we are in a wheel of fortune type market where it's not just going up the center and trying to win a small amount. You're literally playing the wheel every time. And, obviously, if you know Wheel of Fortune, sometimes it'll be a small win, sometimes it'll be a big win. But there's so many more possibilities. And I don't always say this, the market isn't always hitting new all-time highs, not always on like a month and a half crazy win streak, but that's what's happening right now. And I want you to focus where the volatility is, where the inefficiency is, where the opportunity is. And that is right damn now. Okay, if you've been watching my recent video lessons, I went over why I got a little too aggressive on ASTI, but whether I personally got too aggressive, ASTI was still 40, 50% winner from my buy entry to the top. Maybe even more, maybe it was 60%. I don't know. Go back and look. That was like a month ago. SONN, this was fantastic where this one obviously kept going. I couldn't have predicted the good news, but this was the first green day on Friday, and it really spiked nicely actually on day 3. So it's not always just about buying on Friday and selling right away. Sometimes it can keep going. And this was the long weekend. I do remember this. And I really do encourage you to watch my video lessons. Like it's tough for me to explain something that were several weeks ago. You can look back at the chart, but hindsight analysis is always a little less. This is why I always try to do these video lessons in real time. Long story short, it did gap up nicely over the weekend. And I, because of my ASTI loss, sold and did not capitalize truly. And this was like a 40 or 50% winner upside. FTFT, again, I traded it poorly. I did not capitalize. Like none of these plays are like perfect. They're very speculative. FTFT was right in here and it hit a high of, what did it get up to? 407. And my average exit was not that. My average, I did sell some in the 390s, but then I held some over the weekend and it gapped down and I had to sell in the 290s. And overall, it was still a small winner, but I was too aggressive. So on ASTI, I was too aggressive, small loss. SONN, not aggressive enough, but still a bigger win than the loss. And then FTFT, I wasn't aggressive enough I was too aggressive. Sorry, where I held some over the weekend. So I don't want you to think that I win 100% of the time, and if you do watch this presentation on how I trade these things on Fridays, it's not a perfect science, but you're trying to place yourself in a situation where there is a huge amount of upside over the next day or two of trading and limited downside. I mean, that's the beauty of a volatile market. That's the beauty of the strategy right now. So these three trades are a good example where all of them had huge upside, 30, 40, 50% upside from my buy price. ASTI, coulda, woulda, shoulda locked it in, but you never really know. SONN, I was scared because of ASTI, so I did lock it in. This could have been like a $5,000 profit. And then FTFT, I tried to split the difference and it cost me a little bit. But between the three, even when you're not perfect, if you just have one solid winner and you cut your losses like I did on ASTI, even if you're completely wrong, your wins outweigh your losses. So between these three trades, I'm still up 2K. And then the last 2 weeks have just been on fire. Like you literally can sell anytime and just bank. STM was one of my biggest wins. I was literally sitting next to Stratty. Stratty, you might know, is the lead trainer of Inner Circle. I was sitting next to him when I made this trade, and he's trying to get over $1 million. He's at like 950,000, and he was looking at it and he's like, "What do you see here?" And I saw it in his face, like he wanted to understand, but he just couldn't understand why this would keep going. Like he doesn't like to chase stocks when they're up too much. And this was this Friday play. It was already up. This is an unknown AI play, and again, because of this hot market, when there's an unknown AI play, you have like these discovery days where the world and Wall Street and traders and online, they find out about these companies. And when you have like a discovery day, the stock can really keep spiking day 2, day 3, because then theoretically it's been discovered. And STM, had this huge breakout from basically the 9s up to the 13s. And I was buying into the 13s. And I remember looking at Strategy right next to me, and I was buying, and I added even a little after hours because it dipped a little after hours. I got my average to like 13.55. And he's like, what do you see in this? I'm like, first green day, discovery day. And, I didn't know that it was going to go to freaking 18. I didn't know it was going to be as big of a winner as possible as it was. But I did know that, once upon a time right here, you can see here, this turned out to be a first green day, turned out to be dead on. It went all the way up to the 18s. I sold way too soon in the 14s. I'll get to that in a second. But when I was buying, I saw it breaking out discovery day and the last first green day where it had a big volume spiker. Even though day 2 was a red day, as you can see in this candle, if you zoom in, day 2 actually was a little higher priced than the first green day, okay? And this wasn't over the weekend, so you didn't necessarily get the whole inefficiency. And if you look back even further on STEM, aside from this first green day, and yes, it was kind of like a failed second green day, once upon a time, just back in December, it really launched. So with this first green day with a volume spike, okay, day 2 failed, but it's still higher. Or this one where first green day with volume, it starts this whole big thing. And the third time was kind of a combination of the two. It wasn't a day 2 fail like this, and it wasn't quite a whole multi-day, supernova beginning. But it did really start going right here, and I bought it in the 13s. And, I really want you guys to understand that this happens in a hot market. I wouldn't be making a video lesson in the middle of the night. I would be sleeping right now if the opportunity wasn't here every single week right now. This was the spike on day 2 on STEM. No news. It's not like, oh my God, they came out with breaking news. I had inside information. There's no news. It just kept spiking, and big volume. Shorts were scared. Momentum buyers got in. And, going back to my own personal trades, I sold this in the 1470s. And I thought this was a fantastic trade at the time. Like 5 minutes later, it was already in the 18s. So, or maybe 10 minutes later. So I sold too soon. But this is what I want you to understand. With all of these, none of them am I playing them perfectly. And yet, between all of them, I'm having solid wins. And now over the weekend, this weekend, I'm in VCIG. This was probably the easiest of the bunch because this did have news. You can see the news came out here right around 3:30 p.m. Eastern. I love late day breaking news plays. Again, this is the inefficiency. I really encourage you to watch this presentation. It's free. It explains the whole, Friday over the weekend strategy. It explains my whole Friday over the weekend newsletter. It's literally my most consistent strategy, and it's the stupidest. I'm not saying this is rocket science, but sometimes stupid and simple really works. And this is what I do. I filmed this years ago, and it still works to a T. So VCIG had the late day breaking news, stocks to trade breaking news, broke it. I'm not just buying any piece of news. I do have to analyze the news, the chart, the sector, the market. But again, rising tide lifts all boats. This is another AI play. They come out with the news where they say, first encrypted AI compute server for sovereign and defense applications. So sovereign and defense applications, this brings it into, cybersecurity for, governments, data governance, according to Investopedia, sovereign AI infrastructure could reach 1.5 trillion. This is getting into Palantir. Palantir is like one of the top performing stocks and one of the most successful, AI related plays. So it brings them into that. It's a nice press release, but I don't care how the stock, does if the press release comes out and there's just no reaction. I'm not interested in it. But there was an immediate reaction. Let me just show you. Hold on. Let me zoom in here. You can see the news comes out, huge volume immediately. So this tells me that the market cares and that it can keep going. And, I didn't get in right on the breaking news. I'm like around 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. I'm looking. But again, this isn't an exact science. I'm just trying to buy these stocks into the close sometime. And it literally just kept going. And so I got it right here, just under 110. And some people say, well, how do you know, what if it doesn't keep going? That's obviously always a risk. But when the news came out, it spiked right over $1 a share. So really what I'm risking is this. Like, is this big volume wrong? Is this 7, 8, 9 cents a share of spiking wrong? It could be. It could always turn around. You always have to be careful. And it did get up right here to 125 and even down here, down to 115. So it's not like it was straight up all the time, but it was a solid uptrend, got all the way up to the 130s. This is the beautiful thing right now. A lot of these plays, you don't even have to hold over the weekend. They're spiking so much into the close and they're spiking so much after hours specifically. So I'm always looking to hold these stocks, over the weekend. That's what the strategy is. But I will sell if my goals are met, if, my stop loss, I don't use a hard stop loss, I use a manual stop loss. But if my levels are breached, I'll get out if I have to. And so on VCIG, I was letting it run. I don't care whether it closed at 130 or maybe 123. Or if it's here after hours here at 115. Remember, this is all gravy for me. So I'm looking to see this thing benefit from the inefficiency over the weekend as more people see it. And this is kind of like the first, I guess you can call it the discovery day, that this is like a baby Palantir. They're not a successful company like Palantir. They're not going to win any contracts anytime soon. But Palantir is a multi-trillion dollar company. Or let me see, let me get their exact market cap. What is it? 500 billion? No, 375 billion. My bad. So not multi-trillion. Sorry. Multi-100 billion dollar company. But if you look at Palantir's run up, it's one of the most successful stocks in the entire market. So VCIG is a failure of a company, a wannabe company. I'm not saying it's a good company, but when they're now getting discovered as an AI play for governance, it's got the momentum. So again, I'm not in this to buy and sell inside of like 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 minutes. It's not a day trade for me. My over the weekend strategy, I'm trying to hold over the weekend, but I will be pushed. And so when it comes up here, I'm happy. When it comes down, I'm not so happy, but I'm still long. And then it spikes to new highs here. Very strange 1 minute candle. Big volume right here at around 4:15 p.m. And, it doesn't look like much in the chart because it got all the way up to 150, but there were some big sellers here at 130. And at this point, I'm up, nearly 20% on my trade. And I'm thinking, this is near best case scenario. There's big sellers at 130. It's choppy. As you can see, it got up to like 127, then down to 113. So let me lock some in. And this comes down to a personal preference. You tell me in the comments, do you like, selling some into strength? Do you like holding your entire position for more? It's up to you. Everyone trades a little differently. But I sold some after hours just because, there were big sellers at 130-ish. And again, it already nearly hit my goals. And then it gets all the way up to 150. And at this point, I'm thinking about selling everything. But at this point, I'm like, no, I've already sold some to lock it in to be safe. Let me try to ride this over the weekend. And you have to make that choice. Every single person is a little different depending on your weekend schedule, your preferences, how conservative you want to be. In hindsight, should I have sold it here entirely in the 140s? Maybe. We'll see. You don't know, but going back to the Wheel of Fortune, like every week is a new wheel to spin. Is this the Wheel of Fortune? Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about, where you get to choose. The Wheel of Fortune is completely, random. And if you go to play Wheel of Fortune at like a casino, it's actually less than random because the casinos always have the edge and you never hit the big winner. But in the market, it's your wheel. So I could have chosen to lock it in here based on how it closed later Friday. Perhaps I should have. We'll see. I'll do a follow-up to this video when the market opens on Monday. But I already sold some to lock it in. And, I'm happy with that. This is the beautiful thing about being real. This is not going to be a perfect process, but if you put yourself in these plays with the right news catalyst, with the right setup, in this hot market specifically, this doesn't happen all the time, but in this hot market of summer 2025, where crypto's hitting new highs, stock market's hitting new highs, every single week, every single day there's plays, but every single week, specifically on Friday afternoons, you have these Wheel of Fortune type plays where, because of everything that's going on, you just have tremendous upside compared to downside. And the last 5 weeks, I think, really show it well for me. So I really encourage more people to study this. Stratty himself, like I'm going to send this video to him. Stratty, he's trying to close in on 1 million. This is the kind of play that Stratty should be taking, I think. Obviously, it's not his go-to. And, we all have our go-to patterns, but this is my go-to pattern, and I'm very proud. Congrats to so many people, who see this, who are learning from it, who are capitalizing. This wasn't the only big runner. There was also, what was it? MCVT. Too many plays, man. Too many plays. MCVT, this was kind of the discovery day too. This one's scary though. But after hours, this thing, look, it's already up. It's already up. The morning pre-market high is 440. Right here at 3 p.m., it breaks the morning high. So theoretically, you could just buy the breakout, put a stop loss in case the breakout fails. But if you buy this thing anywhere here in the 5s, it does come down here to the 6s after it spikes up to the 7s. But then after hours, look at this thing, 6 to 12 after hours. And we'll see what this one does on Monday too. This is more volatile, a riskier play, but same idea where you have this discovery day, new highs into the close. At this point, even if you used a hard stop, if you bought it anywhere here in the 5s, and let's say you put your stop at 6, I think it got down to what, like 6? I think you would have been fine. Yeah, it got down to like 601. It's not an exact science, but again, it breaks out and it really never comes down past that breakout point, and then things start to get crazy. And even if you don't necessarily buy here in the 5s or the 6s or the 7s, let's say you buy this late day breakout in the after hours in the 7s, and then right here from 5:30 p.m. to 5:50 p.m., so just 20 minutes, it goes from 7 to 12. And again, this is another example where you should be watching Friday afternoons, Friday evenings. You should be capitalizing. 99.9% of people are not going to be focusing on a Friday afternoon or a Friday evening. That's just human nature. So take advantage of it and capitalize. I will post a link to this video. I did this literally years ago. I've been capitalizing on this for 2+ decades. I don't know what more I can do other than, trading it, other than teaching it and, screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm not feeling 100%. Like, I'm pausing this video to cough in between takes, but at the same time, the patterns are there, the opportunities are there. So I hope you capitalize. Leave a comment. Let me know if this makes sense. And congrats to everybody who's learning from this. Let's see how this does on Monday. Cheers.